Hello and happy Wednesday. It's lunchtime, and here joining us today for another LGBT Q&A is Todd Gloria, who really doesn't need an introduction, but we'll go ahead and give him one anyway. It's my pleasure to introduce Todd, who's a native San Diegan graduate of Madison High School and University of San Diego, who's currently the California Assembly member for the 78th Assembly District. So he's my Assembly member. That encompasses Hillcrest and North Park and actually a lot of San Diego. He also serves as the majority whip. And prior to his election at the California Assembly in 2016, Todd served the city council representing District 3. He was also the city council president and served as interim mayor. So please welcome the very busy guy, Todd Gloria.
Thank you, Fern. I appreciate this opportunity.
It's great having you with us. I know you've been a busy guy, and you were able to join us at the Spirit of Stonewall rally this year, which, of course, was a little different format, as everything is.
It's 2020, right? Everything, we're adapting. Some of it's good, but some of it's sad. I miss seeing the crowd that is normally there. But we, had to do it differently to preserve the health and safety of our community, which I know is a priority to Pride. It's certainly a priority to me.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate your time, and we've got some questions that were submitted in advance, and if we have some time, we'll take some extra questions as they come in. And so the first one is, you have seemed to have public service in your blood, and from an early age, we read that you entered a contest when you were 10 years old to be San Diego mayor for the day. So can you tell us a little bit about what that was about and why public service has been so important to you ever since you were a kid?
So, yeah, it's you've done your research. I did. I at that time, Mayor Maureen O'Connor was hosting an essay contest for students to apply for Mayor for the Day, and I was one of the finalists in that. I remind people I was mayor for the day when I was in elementary school. I was mayor for 8 months when I was interim mayor, and I'm now applying to do the job for 8 years. It's the longest apprenticeship ever for this job. And where did that come from? I think a lot of us can relate to when we're growing up members of the LGBTQ community that we don't always feel like we fit in. And that was certainly true for my orientation and my identity. But it was also true in the sense that I was a kid that was really interested in the news and would read the newspaper from a very young age and would watch C-SPAN for fun. And I know that makes me maybe a bit weird, but our community is kind of a collection of folks who don't necessarily fit in. And so when having that opportunity where you could supply an essay about what you wanted to see in the city, I already had 10 ideas that I wanted to fire off. And that was my first opportunity to go to City Hall. And you can imagine many years later, it was something else to be back there as a city council member, council president, and interim mayor. And I'm hoping to go back there soon as mayor of San Diego.
Well, you're weird. I'm weird. I was the one that always wanted to watch the Discovery Channel, so I was just a science nerd. It wasn't quite the C-SPAN kid. Continuing on that, so in a college, the next question is, when a lot of kids were maybe in San Diego is kind of known for having a good time in college, and you were out there advocating for the LGBT community right at USD, and you actually advocated for the campus non-discrimination policy to add sexual orientation. And so it sounds like, that sort of stuff was important to you even as a kid and even in college. So what did that all involve in your work at USD?
A lot. I say to people that USD is where I found my voice as an activist, particularly as a queer activist. I, like a lot of our community, maybe less so now because folks seem to be coming out earlier and earlier, which is great. But college was really kind of the time you'd come out. And I don't think anyone was unclear about my orientation, judging by the bullying in high school. However, I went to college with the intention of being very authentic about who I was. And instead, I found a campus environment that was not inclusive and literally in the form of the non-discrimination policy. So, I took it upon myself to make that change. And that was part of a group effort. There was a small group of out students on that campus that we worked together to change the name of the student organization. Prior to that, it met in secret with security because it wasn't a safe environment. And we made the decision to be much more open and intentional about our work on campus. And through that programming, I think was able to shift the campus political climate to be one that would be supportive of the change. And a little footnote, that change, the school's leaders, the board voting to include sexual orientation in our non-discrimination policy happened the year after I graduated. And I'll never forget the dean of students tracking me down. At that point, I was a staff member to Congresswoman Susan Davis. And you can imagine what it would be. Doesn't matter how many years out of school you've been, when the dean calls, you get nervous. What did you do wrong, right?
What did you do wrong?
And he did me the honor of calling to inform me of the vote and recognizing the work that I had done with my colleagues to make that happen. And it's that kind of results have been addictive, right? And it's what sort of led me to this career. When I think about all of the advocacy and protesting and petitioning that I did on that campus, this was the work I later did as a housing activist in Mid-City, as an LGBTQ leader at the LGBT Center. These were all transferable skill sets to the work that I do to this day as a state legislator.
Absolutely. And now USD's LGBT programs have grown so much since then. And we've been able to partner with them here at San Diego Pride. And I remember moving to San Diego in '99 and for college. And at the time, SDSU didn't have a contingent in the parade. It was Benny Cartwright and I who walked together for the first time in 2020 with just the two of us and his other friend with the banner, and changing that climate on college campuses is so important for the next generation of folks. And it's incredible to see how far it's gone in those 20 some years, not to date us too much.
Yeah, don't say the number. But I
Okay.
what you said is, resonates, right? I mean, and it isn't just to minimize the experiences of students on campus today. I know that there are different challenges that are not necessarily less important or painful than what we may have experienced, but the idea that San Diego State wouldn't have a pride presence, right? That they wouldn't raise the rainbow flag as they've been doing for a number of years. I mean, progress is incremental. Sometimes it's symbolic, but whether it's the addition of those words to USD's non-discrimination policy or to the symbolism of raising the flag each year on campus, it sends a message to what would have been me when I was a freshman and on orientation week on campus and looking to see, is this a place where I can be safe, a place where I can belong? These things are powerful. And again, it sort of leads to my public service where, I believe that if you're willing to work hard and play by the rules, there should be a place for you to belong in this city. And I know that we have a lot of work to do in that regard.
Absolutely. And a wonderful segue to the next question, actually, which is, your leadership in our community has really been an inspiration to a lot of LGBTQ folks, especially our younger generation, which, I still think that we're relatively young. But who was your inspiration growing up, or even now, who's your inspiration?
I've had a cause to think about this a bit in recent days, just different interactions I've had in the community. But I can tell you a quick story. When I was in high school, I took a community college course on political science, Poli-Sci 101. And as you can imagine, that nerdy kid that had been watching C-SPAN for 10 years by that point was super excited to take this class. And the professor in that class one day was lecturing and kind of out of nowhere made the comment that if you wanted to run for public office in the United States, you couldn't be two things. One was gay. And to this day, Fern, I don't know what the second thing he said, because I remember being so stunned that even in the 1990s, that someone would say that. I mean, saying the quiet part out loud, right? And the reason that wasn't devastating to me, even though I didn't necessarily think of myself as an elected official, but being able to run for office, but it was counter to what we've all been told. And in this country, you can be whatever you want to be if you're willing to work hard. And but to your question, at that point, I'd already volunteered on Christine Kehoe for City Council's campaign. Mm-hmm. And that was her very first campaign. I think many of the viewers know she is San Diego's Harvey Milk. And, what I knew as a student, as a 17-year-old kid, that, teachers are amazing authority figures, right? And for him to say that was, I think, suggestive of it being truthful. But I knew it wasn't truthful because Chris existed. Chris won. And, that is inspiration that I have channeled. And, I will, if you ever see me in a room with Christine Kehoe, you better believe that I don't know what the subject matter is going to be about. I'm going to reference and thank her, because it's not just me who's benefited from her, but it's Tony Atkins, it's Chris Ward, it's a number of folks who would not have their careers if it wasn't for the bravery of Christine Kehoe. So she has been an inspirational figure and will always be that to me and to our broader LGBTQ community.
Absolutely, absolutely. Chris is incredible. Did a lot to help save Pride over the years, and all of our challenges too. I mean, Chris's legacy is just incredible, and we all stand on her shoulders. Absolutely. And so Chris was there as a legislator in the state as well. So the next question, and this is great, what are the two pieces of legislation, or one or two pieces of legislation, that you're most proud of accomplishing at the state?
It's a hard one to answer. For your viewers, each legislator is allowed up to 25 bills a year. And you try and introduce as many as you can, because as you can imagine, each step along the process, the list gets smaller and smaller and smaller. I think what I've been proud of is that I carried a number of reforms, structural reforms to local government that I think, while they may seem a bit dull on the top line, and this is where a lot of you are gonna like log off and go like get your lunch, but stay with me. We passed legislation to have runoff elections at our county board of supervisors, and that is being seen in this election of having transformative change in who will represent us amongst the 5 people who carve up a multi-billion-dollar budget annually. And this is particularly important for our LGBT community, because many of you know that they have a Health and Human Services Agency that is our primary provider of HIV programs prevention services. And so understanding that we can have a seat at that table, that structural reform in that election bill was pretty important. Air Pollution Control District. Look no further than today, when we have an active fire in the community, may know that that board has never been representative of the broader community. I carried legislation to completely reform the way that they operate. And I think you're going to see market change in the way that we hold polluters accountable. Some of you may know that we're currently subsidizing polluters in this county because of the way our current air pollution control district board works. And so, again, I recognize these don't make for great bumper stickers, but Fern, I know you know from your activism that these are the kinds of things that make things that were previously impossible now possible. And I look forward to seeing how this plays out over the next number of years, because I think you'll see significant changes from the county when it comes to how they handle homelessness and mental health, to the Air Pollution Control District and how they hold polluters accountable and address environmental justice issues in communities like Barrio Logan and Logan Heights. So stay tuned, because these bills are maybe quiet and their impacts may take a number of years to see, but the change is coming, and I'm pretty excited about it.
Well, you're speaking my nerdy language, and I get super excited about changes at county, because you look at the issues that are impacting the LGBT community and understanding the disparities that hit us, from mental health and homelessness, or physical health and STIs and HIV services and care and food insecurity. All of those things, so much of that goes through county. And so to have folks who sit at the county who are compassionate towards our community and can then fund the services that actually are competent to serve our community has been such a heavy lift over the last, couple decades. And we've seen a lot of change happen there really quickly. So while folks, you're right, might not say like, oh, what's interesting about county elections? It's like, no, they're really, really important, in particular to our community. Absolutely. So I'm right there with you.
I knew you would be.
Let's see. Okay. The next question is, obviously 2020 has been an insanely difficult year for all of us. And you, as a legislator, have had a unique position in that. What's been the hardest part of your jobs? We've all had to relearn our jobs this year. What's been the hardest part of yours?
There's a lot, having to still commute to Sacramento at a time where we're telling people to stay home, and all of that, and that's personal. But what I would say, the answer to your question, Fern, is that it's been having to deal with the avalanche of folks seeking unemployment benefits, and the state not meeting its responsibilities to deliver on that. And this isn't just me, it's every member of my team who fields the literally thousands of inquiries that we've received from San Diegans since March. Many of these claims are successfully resolved in a short amount of time. Others take longer periods of time. Some we're still working on. And this is a lot more than some application online. This is about people's ability to feed themselves, to put a roof over their head at a time when, only a few weeks before they could never even imagine this happening, right? Prior to the pandemic in March, we had nearly full employment in our economy. And you go to a situation where, even today, there's still parts of our region that are experiencing high, north of 20% unemployment. And a lot of those folks are calling our office seeking assistance. And, if you know me and the way that I'm wired, I want to knock down every door. I want to, make every phone call and do whatever it takes to get people what they're owed. And again, we've had a lot of success where this is concerned. But in listening to these stories of people's lives turned upside down, it isn't just a amount of time in your day; it's the emotional toll. And this is where I really want to give a shout out to my staff. We call each other the Todd Squad, who, prior to the pandemic, we had one staff member working on unemployment issues. Every member of my team right now are working on unemployment claims. It gives you a sense of the volume. And every one of them have really stepped up. And, none of us have finished Netflix. None of us have been, just at home with nothing going on. All of us have been working pretty much every day on these claims. So I think you're even hearing little group therapy here. So forgive me for doing that with you, but it's been emotionally taxing. Again, acknowledging that's how we receive it, but we recognize the people on the other end of the phone or the other end of the email is feeling it far more acutely. And this is probably where I put a mention out to folks that, if you're having difficulty with a state agency, if it's unemployment or if it's covered California or et cetera, call your state legislator. If you live in the 78th Assembly District, call us. We're here to help. And that's where the thousands of people who've been calling our office have been coming from. They know that if they need help with a state agency, they're to call their state legislator.
Well, I feel you, I hear you, and I want to also give a shout out to your team and all of the staffers who work for elected offices this year, whatever, if it's city, if it's county, if it's state. I think, so much attention gets paid to our elected officials, and rightfully so, but those staffers who work in those offices work so hard, and I have the privilege and honor of being friends with several folks who work in many different offices, and including Nick Serrano, who was the co-chair of San Diego Pride over here, and I get to hear those stories, and we all text and chat and talk and Zoom and all the ways that we are interacting right now, and I know that they're working until 9 o'clock and 9:30 and 10 o'clock at night and 11 o'clock at night, still doing that constituent relations work. And I think I'm glad that you were able to bring that up because, one, your folks work super hard. Any of our elected official reps work incredibly hard. And I think a lot of folks forget that constituent services are a thing that exist. And if you are having that challenge with whatever the agency is, contacting your elected representative's office, they're there to help. And I know your team is out there doing the work. So thank you for bringing that up. I think that's important for folks to remember.
Absolutely. Thanks for that shout out to Nick, Javier. I'm proud to have a great team. A lot of my team members are members of our community. They're that next generation of leaders, and I'm proud of all of them.
Yeah, that's us too. Thank you. So this one was, this is a kind of about pride and our community, what our community in particular is experiencing, that with in-person gatherings being canceled for the foreseeable future and the loss of massive events like Pride and other LGBT community gatherings, it's really taken an emotional toll on our community in particular, folks who can otherwise feel isolated in general day-to-day lives or in employment settings or with family. And so what thoughts do you have around that and for San Diego Pride, our family volunteers, and for the LGBT community in general?
That's a tough question, Fern, because I want to admit to you that I struggle with this as well, right? I mean, I'm a human being, and I miss the connection with my community. You and I know what it is to be at events all day, every day, all year long, and that's been taken from all of us. And I think that's particularly true or acute. You rightly identify it for our community because we have our family, but we also have our chosen family, right? And that often means people that we see socially, and we can think of them as relatives, but they may not be part of our household, right? And so we're experiencing some distance. They're the people that help us get through what may be frayed or fractured relationships with our given family, right? And so I understand how traumatic this has been for our community. And I guess words of advice is that, our community has encountered a pandemic before. And while I wouldn't say it's mission accomplished where that's concerned, we certainly are not where we were decades ago, where AIDS was a death sentence. We know how to tackle this. And it's always my hope that through all of the challenges we face as a community, that we can take our lessons learned and apply it to progress in other areas. I think about all the assistance we received in fighting for marriage equality. And I think that the lessons we learned from organizing and fundraising and activation, we need to plow into immigration reform, into women's rights and their access to quality healthcare. There's a number of issues where we have to take our experiences and put it to the benefit of the broader community. And I think that we have lessons learned from our direct experiences with HIV that can be applicable to helping our broader community defeat COVID-19. So this will pass. And I think that's important for people in positions like mine to remind people, we will defeat this thing. And just do your level best to follow the public health order. Look out for one another, pick up the phone and call. I know that for a lot of members of our community, we don't use the phone for anything other than to text or to direct message, but there's something to be said for live in-person communication. And I hope that we particularly will be reaching out to those members of our community maybe you would see out and about a lot, but you haven't heard from in a while. It's worthwhile picking up the phone and reaching out to them, because while you may know, I'm sure 1 in 3 Americans are exhibiting signs of anxiety and depression. Mm-hmm. And I want to speak that out loud, because the stigma that mental health has in our community means that we don't often talk about this. And I mention it because we need to lift it up, but we also need to take action where that's concerned. And that's why I'm really, again, encouraging folks to reach out to people, make sure that they hear your voice and let them know that you care about them. That's the kind of stuff that I worry a lot about. We will find a vaccine for COVID-19. It's the accessory impacts, whether it's economic loss or loss of fraternity or of community, that is the bill that we'll be paying for a very, very long time. So please mind the public health order and look out for one another. We've done this before. We can do it again.
Absolutely. Wear a mask. And
please, but not that hard. I mean,
no, I went running the other day in 90-degree weather with my mask on, and you can do it to go grocery shopping. It's okay.
Yeah.
But I love what you say, though, too, about the lessons that our community has learned through HIV or whatever it is that our community has faced, marriage equality, don't ask, don't tell, fighting for trans rights, and the battles that we're still fighting, is that how applicable those are to other battles. And I think so often folks look at the LGBT issues and segregate them from other issues, but our community is not one thing. We are intersectional, and I know you understand that. And I have seen so many folks come out of the HIV movement, as I know you have, and the marriage movement, and our leaders in our communities. Like Kara Desert, the CEO of the center, and we were the coordinators of the campaign around marriage equality back in 2008. And you were running for city council, and so many of us have gone on, and a lot of the folks who were parts of those campaigns then are using those skills that they learned and helping to impact their community positively now. So I just continue to be inspired by our community, and that's actually the next question, which is, what are the most inspirational things that you have seen come out of the LGBT community during this pandemic?
So much. And I appreciate that question, because obviously so much of the pandemic, the recession, police brutality, other issues that are out there, are really difficult and hard things to talk about and to see. But there's so much good that's going on out there. And, my office has established a Heart of San Diego award that we try and pass out once a week, highlighting and illuminating members of the San Diego community who are doing great things, who are stepping up in ways that we hope that San Diegans would step up to help us get through this time. And Fern, you wouldn't be surprised that a good number of the people are members of our community, not because we're providing affirmative action to LGBTQ people for this award, but because there are so many members of our community that have just stepped up. And I'm thinking about Paris, from Inside Out, who has taken her incredible costume making skills to make masks for hundreds, if not thousands, of San Diegans early on, before I think about them, before they even suggested we should all be wearing that. To Darnell Williams from the Imperial Court, who started a Take What You Need food distribution in his front yard that has now been turned into a once a week major distribution in City Heights. And to your point about intersectionality, it's City Heights, it's not Hillcrest, right? And while there's certainly a lot of members of our community who live in the 92105 zip code, when I've gone out there to volunteer, you see all corners of the San Diego community there. And you know that a lot of the folks passing them food are members of the Imperial Court system that, if our bars were open as they normally would be, are going to be, lip syncing to the best Cher song ever. And yet they're here using, again, those organizing skills, those leadership skills to feed hungry people in our community. So there are so many things going on. And this is where I maybe would put a plug in. If any of your viewers know of people who, again, are exhibiting the best of our city right now, please send that to me, direct message it, send it to my staff, send it to my office. Let us lift up those folks, because we know a lot of people are doing the quiet work that is holding us together as a city right now. And we want to thank those people, because that's how we're going to defeat this pandemic.
Yeah, and I love that you brought up Paris. She was the first one that came to mind, and all of the folks who are doing all these incredible things everywhere. It's really inspiring to see our community just lift up and activate and answer the call, as we always do, to lean in and serve. See, it's that service, public service is in our blood now too.
That's right.
See, the next question is, okay, what's the first thing you would like to do when this is over personally? So not work, Todd, fun. Do you have fun?
It's been a few years. It's been a couple of years since I had a lot of fun. So this is so dumb. This is so dumb. But, I think that what we've learned is there's so many little things in life that we're used to having that we don't have. And so, as you may know, I'm a little fastidious about my presentation. Chalk it up to being a brown gay guy and recognizing I'm standing there on behalf of a lot of folks. And I always want to put my best foot forward for you. And that's actually the thing. I have lost my ability to shine shoes. So, Fern, I have to tell you that I haven't been repping you well if you look down at the shine. And I miss the crew of guys whose shoe sign stand that I normally visit, who were shut down for the longest time. And mostly I want to connect with them to know how they're doing. How do they, as workers in San Diego, a high cost environment, how are they making ends meet right now? But how can I also, meet my own personal high expectations for how I present myself, because I present myself on behalf of all of you. I know that's the silliest thing, but when I look back at every morning when I get dressed, I'm like, I could do it, but I know I can't do it as well as Frankie and Joel and all the folks that I work with. And then I just miss that connection, right? We swap stories. They tell me they are the best politicians, by the way. They have the ear to the ground, right? So I miss that interaction so much. And there's probably a million other ways that those little conversations that are the accidental, kind of the universe providing opportunities, that formal opportunities like this, while it's fun and I love seeing you, Fern, doesn't provide the same opportunity. So I guess it's less about the shoe shine and more about the kind of kismet of what can come in those settings. I can't wait for that to come back again, and hopefully it won't be too much longer.
Yeah, I hear that. It goes back to that human connection that we're all missing. And you talked about the events that we all used to go to all the time. And my not so secret about me is that I'm actually an introvert. And so I find it very draining to go to these events, but I absolutely love people. In the beginning of all of this, I was like, okay, cool. I have a little break from events. I have my evenings back. I can cook. I love to cook. But man, I'm finally at a place like I miss public events so much. And, we did Pride Live this year, which was great. And we reached over 500,000 people online in education but give me 350,000 people in the street any day. I miss it.
Yeah, you're not as introverted as you thought you were, right?
Yeah, suddenly I'm desperate for those big crowds again.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny that you brought up your shoes, because this next question is actually that, Todd, I saw the LGBT history exhibit at San Diego History Center, and there was a picture where with purple sneakers. What's with the color purple, and where did that come from? So.
It's a great question. And yeah, we donated those to the Lambda Archives, and that's made their way to the History Center. It's a fabulous exhibit. And if any of our members of our community haven't seen it, I believe the History Center, if it's not reopened, it's reopening soon. So go check it out, because it's a community that doesn't know its history Yeah, that's a shame. We need to know our history. And of course, I'm honored to have something in that exhibit. And it is the purple shoes. And, I won my first election the way that you win a local election, which is knocking on doors and wearing out shoe leather. And so we have those shoes, a pair of Nikes that are personalized with TG for D3 on the back. And, I knocked on 25,000 doors to win that election. I remind people that I lost like 13 pounds and had a great farmer's tan. My inauguration pictures from that were pretty awesome. I haven't looked like that since. But your question about the purple is an homage to my mentor, who is Congresswoman Susan Davis. People know that I worked as a staff member, as the district director for her. Not everyone knows that I actually met Susan when I was 14 years old, when I applied for a youth mentoring program that was sponsored by the Price family, the folks who created Price Club, Costco. And Susan was the executive director of that program. So this was before she was elected to the legislature and to Congress, and while I was still sort of figuring out what I was going to do. And it's a story of female empowerment, actually, because Susan, when she ran for school board, take a step back. Purple is her favorite color. And so when she ran for school board, quite naturally, she was going to use her favorite color on her signs and her materials. And people, aka men, told her that wasn't a strong enough color, that it had to be blue or it had to be red, but purple, that's too feminine. You'll lose if you use that color. And Susan stuck to her guns because, darn it, it's her campaign. She's the candidate. She's going to do what she wants. And naturally, she won and has never lost an election in her entire multi-decade career. So when I started running in 2008, it's sort of a dance with the one that brung you. I recognized that my ability to be a credible candidate for city council had to do with the fact that I learned a lot about public service from Susan. And so I adopted the color of purple. I still use it to this day in all of my campaign materials, on my website, my signs, and even on the shoes in that first election.
I didn't know that story. That's so great. I love that. Well, if I ever decide to run, which I will not, I'll have pink signs.
As you should. It would be off-brand if you didn't, Vern.
Right. Well, that I think, is that all the questions that we have? We've got Alex in the background being able to send us other questions.
Hello, Alex.
I think that might be all the questions we have. Any last words or messages you'd like to share?
Fern, I would just repeat some of what I was able to share earlier, but I think it needs repeating. I miss our community, at least in person. Many of you connect with us by calling or emailing or interacting on social media, but you're never far from my thoughts. And I just hope that everyone is staying safe, that they're being well, that they're checking on one another, not just from the pandemic perspective, but from the fires perspective, from the temperature. I know a lot of our seniors need to be checked on, and I hope that folks are doing that. I'm a believer that things happen for a reason, and while I wish that we weren't in this predicament, I truly believe that we can take this situation and come out of this stronger and better as a community. That's certainly my hope. That's my objective. And I look forward to working with this community to do exactly that, virtually for now, but in person, hopefully in the not too distant future.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining us. I know you're a super busy guy. Thank you for everything you're doing for us up at the state and everything. Thank your team for us if they're watching. Thank you, everybody. You're all doing a great job taking care of us, and I know you're all doing your best. So thank you again, Todd, so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Fern. Thank you, Pride. We'll see you all soon.
See you soon. And thank you, everyone, for joining us today. This was one of our LGBTQ&A series. We'll be continuing this throughout the fall and maybe taking a little break in December. But we hope to continue bringing you live virtual educational content and Q&As, just like we would sort of do our educational content regularly. But obviously, we need to continue to keep folks healthy and safe. So this is the format that we're going to be using for the foreseeable future. And I'm really actually excited that we're still able to do our Youth Leadership Academy, which is coming up on November 14th and 15th. So our Youth Leadership Academy, where we make sure that we're teaching leadership skills to the next generation of LGBTQ youth. And that's open to folks who are in junior high through high school. So you can find the information for that on our website, sdpride.org/youth or YLA. And another thing that we do here at San Diego Pride in coalition and collaboration with several other agencies is we host the Me Too LGBTQ conference, which is geared towards service providers of victims victims of sexual assault from the LGBT community. And it's also, there's also a track for LGBTQ survivors as well. So that's unique in the country for anything outside of a university. And that conference is coming up on October 15th, 16th, and 17th. It's a 3-day conference. Again, Me Too LGBTQ conference. You can find that information on our website as well, sdpride.org/metoo. Thank you so much for joining us. Please make sure that you stay safe, you stay healthy, wear a mask. Census is still out there. If you haven't completed your census form, make sure you're getting that turned in. And if you need to re-register to vote, to make sure that your voter registration information is updated, please do so. We'll be doing our regular nonpartisan voter engagement work that we do every year, Vote with Pride program. That's coming up soon too, so we can turn out our community to show up at the polls or vote by mail. And we'll be doing remote phone banking. So if you're interested in helping turn out the LGBTQ vote, you can also hit us up on our website at sdpride.org/volunteer. If you like the programming that we're still able to do, and you are able, please consider becoming a monthly donor, a supporter of San Diego Pride at sdpride.org/donate. Thank you so much for joining us today. My gratitude to Todd and his team for joining us as well. Thank you so much. Have a great day, and together we rise.